Well, welcome everybody today. I want to first say I sent an email out briefly to those who had signed up for the Broadband Leadership webinar series, informing them that we will have a change of topic today, but we still would like to meet and have some informal discussions with Bill Coleman and Matt Schmidt. And so we had a presenter become ill and unable to present today. And so we're sorry to hear that, and also sorry for the inconvenience. We are wanting to keep the content in order. So we will send out some updates about when the funding and partnerships portion that was supposed to be today, when that will happen, as well as any implications on the agenda for the Broadband Leadership series. So keep an eye on your email for those updates in the coming days. Just so happy to have Bill and Matt on to engage with you all. Maybe invite you to enter into the chat box where you're coming from today. Maybe you're in a local government or from a county level perspective, and what county and organization are you with? Where are you coming from? Thanks for joining us for these office hours. And so
I'll take the lead, Nancy.
I think I'll hand it over to you, Bill. Anyone have any questions, you can actually feel free to unmute yourself and speak. And so I'm going to actually open up the parameters to let people unmute themselves as well. Feel free to use the chat space freely, but know that you can also have open discussion. Okay, Bill, and thank you again.
Great, thanks, Nancy. I'm Bill Coleman here on behalf of the Benton Institute for Broadband and Society. And as things happen, this falls under that category of our speaker. I called her this morning to talk a few details, and she could barely speak, and it sounded painful, and she was ready to try and go ahead. And I thought, well, one of the beauties of these Zoom meetings is, you know, if you're canceled, people just go back and do their work. It's not like you've traveled or spent money or the speaker flew in. So as the flexibility that presents is certainly one of the benefits. But we also thought, well, if we have 50 to 60 people who are signed up for this event and ready to give that time to broadband, let's just think about how we might make good use of this time and talk broadband in an informal sense. So if you have questions that you'd like answered, if you have questions about particular federal or state broadband programs that you'd like more information on, or really anything under the sun broadband, we're happy to take a shot at it. Matt is the director of the Office of Broadband. And so we have a fair amount of knowledge here between the two of us, and certainly on the call, there's others who have great experience as well. So Matt and I talked briefly in our planning here about what could happen here. And one of the exciting things that is new and great in broadband in Illinois is the new mapping system that's now available. So Matt, do you want to kind of take a lead on that and share kind of where people can find the maps and how they can be used?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Bill and Nancy, again, for convening us today. And I think the theme of 2021 here is the broadband moment. Let's seize it. And so we didn't want to let this opportunity pass us by. There's so much to talk about and so many opportunities out there. And I just want to take advantage of the time we have together today. I know from my experience, I've never seen this much investment, state, federal, the excitement, the policy alignment for making significant inroads on broadband connectivity. And it really lines up well with our goals here in Illinois, broadband ubiquity in the coming years, all homes, businesses, community anchor institutions with the level of service you need to compete in the 21st century. And so what's great now is that we've got federal funding available to communities, to local governments. You don't necessarily need to apply for grants. The dollars are there for you. And if you're a local leader that knows that you need to do something on the broadband front, now is a great time to be asking questions. And so I know that our office phone has been ringing, and it's just great to see that level of interest. And so I just want to say that at the front end here, if you know that you want to be doing more on the broadband front, you just don't know how to take those next steps, this is the perfect way to get started. Talking here in this webinar, joining future conversations, reaching out to us. We want to help because this is truly a historic opportunity to make a world of difference for your communities. And so, as Bill had mentioned, we do have some mapping that is available to us. We are sharing it with stakeholders that are interested. There's going to be a formal launch in the coming weeks. But this is something that we want our communities, our providers, folks in Illinois to take full advantage of, because we've spent about 18 months putting this together, both on the procurement side and then with our vendor reaching out to the provider community in Illinois, gathering data. And so I dropped a link in the chat box for you right now. It's a fully interactive map, and I'm going to try to share my screen here and just kind of take you through what this looks like. And so hopefully you can all see the screen I'm sharing. And just because I'm a little leery of bandwidth, I'm going to show you static slides of the mapping. You can drill down and do so many different cuts at this map and this data. But again, this is data that was provided to us through our mapping vendor from providers in Illinois. If you look at FCC mapping and data that's available, this is better for a variety of reasons. One, it's more accurate, 6 to 9 months more timely than anything that you're going to see posted on a federal website. Secondly, it's more granular. Instead of settling for census block data, we actually get down to addresses in many cases. And then I think that the third thing is we're making regular updates. And so this is going to be a very useful tool. It's not to knock any of the other mapping that's out there, great resources. And some of them will include data sets and different files that are really helpful for crosstabs and in comparisons. But we think that the Illinois broadband map that I'm sharing right now is going to be a key tool for our communities, for our providers, for folks who want to take advantage of this moment and invest in broadband. And so let's just keep this informal. If you got any comments, questions, just fire away. Otherwise, I'll just spend a couple minutes giving a high-level overview of what the mapping looks like. And again, we want you to play around with this and make the most use of it possible. It's all going to be publicly available. And in fact, it's not password protected. So that link I shared with you, share it far and wide, use it, and let's make this mapping do wonders for us. And so you can see this doesn't say a whole lot here. Let's click a couple of these tabs here in the upper left-hand corner, these speed tiers. We're going to click on 100 megabit per second wireline service and 25/3 wireline service. You click on both of those and it illuminates the map. You can see in the legend in the lower right-hand corner, the service tiers that are highlighted. And what you see on the map are the areas in dark orange where you have 100/20 service, and areas in lighter orange where you've got that 25/3 service. I think the key takeaway here is we've got a lot of work to do in Illinois. And it's also worth pointing out that no map is going to be perfect. It's kind of a snapshot in time where we are today, but this is going to help us work with communities, with our providers, targeting resources to fill in the map and meet our goals. Now, of course, our goals in Illinois, we want to have every household, business, community anchor institution, farm, you name it, with access to at least 100/20 service in the coming years. In order to do that, it's going to be an all hands on deck approach, leveraging state, federal, local dollars in partnership with our provider community, our communities, in cities and local governments across the state. And so the Office of Broadband, our friends at the Benton Institute, we're here to help. And so that's just one cut at this map. You can zoom in, you can enter your address, you can actually get down. You'll be able to look at actual households and have speed test data that will compare against the provider offer data to give you a sense of, where service truly is strong and where there are gaps. And so that's just, one thing that you're able to do here. We're going to keep zoomed out though for the purpose of this conversation. So fixed broadband that we just looked at a couple different speed tiers is one way of looking at this. If you're interested in 5G or LTE broadband, you can click on that and you see in this, should we call it magenta? We've got a couple different shades of color here. And you can see where 5G has been reported to be available or the infrastructure for it. And also where LTE, the predominant wireless technology throughout Illinois. Now you zoom in here, you're going to see pockets where there's service. If you're driving around in a country road or even hitting a dead spot in a more urban area, you know that there's not ubiquitous coverage. But what this map is trying to attempt is identifying where that coverage is strong, where it's relatively weak. And so that as we're deploying our resources, and there's a path for investing in both cellular technology and also fixed broadband, that we're taking advantage of that where we can. And so the map includes data to that end. This is another data that, another layer of the map that we think is really helpful. And this, by clicking on fiber, cable, DSL, fixed wireless, provides different technologies that are available in different parts of the state. And again, you can enter your address, you can zoom in, you can check out your county, your city, your school district, you name it. But from a bird's eye view here, looking at the entire state, and if you're looking at this legend in the lower right-hand corner, you can see where fiber broadband is reported to be available in this the shades of brown. The darker the shades, the higher the service level that's available. Likewise for cable, in this red color, DSL, traditional technology used by our phone carriers, in purple, and then also our fixed wireless broadband in green. And so you can see different kinds of broadband available, different technologies. And you look at this map and you say, well, wow, the state's much more filled in than some of those other maps might be. And that's because that initial map that I showed you was just showing fixed broadband, not necessarily all wireless broadband. And so there's some parts of Illinois right here in green that were not included in that earlier map. The point is, there's so many different ways of looking at this data. We want to make it available to you. And now this is another important one. This is density of providers. In other words, competition. How many different providers are in a given area? We think this is really important to the conversation as well, because we know as much as we love our provider community in Illinois, not all providers are investing in modern technology or responsive to community needs. We wish they all were, and that's why we really appreciate those that are. But in areas where we need to do better, competition can be helpful. And so you look at the density of providers, the darker the shade, of course, the more providers. This is, I think, a real commentary on the dearth of competition in many parts of Illinois. And so that's something that you're seeing increasing focus at the federal level on. In Illinois, our basic goals, we want broadband available to everyone, everywhere. And we're starting with that goal first and foremost. And so this map will show you density of providers throughout the state. And again, you can zoom in, you can get a much more accurate and granular look at your community. Now, in the upper left-hand corner, we had the access tab clicked. And so everything that we just ran through was basically scrolling down the access tab. But if you scroll over and you click on statistics here, it'll open up a number of data sets from the American Community Survey. And so this is 2019 data, so it's not perfectly up to speed, but it's pretty relevant as census data goes. It'll be updated regularly. But right now we are clicking on county level data. So you can see all 102 counties in Illinois highlighted here. And the service that's selected is wireline service, 100 by 20. And so you can see here at the county level, areas where you have higher penetration of broadband at that service level, 100 by 20. The shades of blue, 70 plus, 80 plus, 90 plus. You get down to the yellow shades, under 50% households in those counties or 100 by 20 services available. And so you can just see county by county where some of the challenges persist. Yeah, Bill.
David Dukowski has a question about when you talk about number of providers, does that include all the satellite and cellular providers? Do you have a definition of a provider there?
Yeah, so in this case, look, we welcome investment in all sorts of technologies in Illinois. And so what we're tracking with our providers are all fixed broadband providers. And so that could be wireline, or else it could be fixed wireless providers in a given area.
But it does not include cellular or satellite.
It does not. No, that's a great point. I'm running through this fairly quickly here. So those are great questions. Bill, I'm not keeping close tabs on the chat box. So if there are other questions, yeah, please just chime in here. And I think that's a good point. This is always going to be an iterative exercise for the Office of Broadband and for our collaborators. You know, as the state fills in with more and more investments, the maps are going to change. And that's a really good problem because that means that we're making progress. And so this effort, we expect to be updating these maps on a regular basis throughout the year, continuing to get input from our providers, also from speed test data, as well as from field test survey work. We actually get out in the field and test the bandwidth that's available in different parts of the state.
Is there going to be any emergency broadband benefit data in this system?
Yeah, there's a whole layer of data that maybe fits the digital equity frame, and we can't wait to access that and include it in here. And so there are some data sets for various socioeconomic data, but I think the EBB is another great example of data that is going to be illustrative of where we're at in Illinois.
Any
Likewise,
crowdsourcing part of this?
Oh, pardon me?
Is there any kind of crowdsourcing or community means of looking at the data and contributing or challenging?
Yeah, so so we're always welcoming feedback, and you can see in the upper left-hand corner, please provide feedback here. So you click on that link, and that'll actually lead you to a form, and you can register feedback that will go directly to our mapping vendor, Connected Nation, also to our Office of Broadband. And so if you look at the map and you say, this just doesn't jive with my reality, let us know. Or if you have any suggestions on how to make this better, let us know. We want this tool, again, to help us drive investments in Illinois from the Office of Broadband standpoint, but we also want it to be available and useful to the general public and other stakeholders. And so, yeah, let us know. On the mapping front, because this just came to us, we're looking forward to setting up a structure through our Broadband Advisory Council, and maybe a less formal structure for thinking about how to do mapping best in Illinois. There's a variety of stakeholders, whether it's higher education or the city of Chicago or other units of government, that we think can contribute a great deal to getting the best mapping that we possibly can invest in. And so this is going to be an ongoing conversation. If anybody's got any suggestions on again, how to get good feedback and resources and data, we'd love to hear it.
Good, thanks, Matt. That's a good set of maps, and like anything, it's the data that goes in affects the quality of the presentation. So making sure that it's accurate for your area, that speed testing kind of function, I think is something that is another way to kind of verify the data and so on.
And Bill, I know that we probably have a lot of questions and good things to discuss, but I'll just mention, you can click on each county here in addition to scrolling in or zooming in, and you can actually see the breakdown of the percent of households within that county that have service at a given level. And so here in Iroquois County, shaded yellow, so suggesting, under 50%, I'm sorry, between 50 and 60% penetration at the 25 by 3 wire line level. You see 42% have it at 100 by 20. Fixed, 37 all or simply wireline, and then leaving almost 6,000 households unserved. And so it'll help local leaders or county officials or others get a good understanding of where you're at. And again, you can zoom in and you can actually see within the county where there's areas of relative strength and weakness. And so it's not simply a matter of the county being one shade or the other. You zoom in, we have 1,788 static PDF maps. And one of the sets of those maps are county level data. You can see where 25 by 3 is available within your county, where 100 by 20 is available within your county, where you might have gig symmetrical service available within your county. And so those maps are already prepared. You don't even have to mess around with an interactive mapping tool, and they're going to be posted online and announced hopefully in the next week or so.
Matt, what about affordability? Any mapping of that or data?
Yeah, that's something that we want to be collecting that data, accessing existing data sets, and again, incorporating it into our map. And I think the key here is to get data that's accurate, that's timely, that's actually going to inform our understanding of where there are strengths and weaknesses throughout Illinois. And so affordability is another key piece. You see policymakers in Illinois and across the country level more and more attention towards the issue of affordability. And so we take that seriously. We know that's part of the digital equity landscape. It's a barrier for many, and we want to do what we can to address that.
Can you go back and talk more? There's a question about that. Is this the same thing as the FCC data?
Yeah. So in the meantime, I did advance the slide, and what you're seeing here, instead of looking at counties, I've scrolled down and selected school districts, and you can see school districts that have within their jurisdictional boundaries broadband service of 100 by 20 available through wireline technology. And again, this is just like the county cut, but it's just many more jurisdictions here, school district lines. You can zoom in here and you can get the data on your school district. Here's Richland County Community Unit School District, #1. And you can see the breakdown there. Within that school district, over 6,000 unserved households, and unserved meaning under that 25 by 3 level. And so, Bill, to your question, how does the data differentiate from FCC's data? You know, I'm not going to be the only critic of what the FCC has done over the last 20 years on mapping. It's better than nothing. It's helped a lot of conversations, but it's been far from perfect. And I think a lot of the concern that we've had with the FCC data is that it's not particularly timely. The data is collected and it often doesn't hit the public or be posted for 6 to 9 months. And so it's going to be a little dated, but also it's not granular. You're really having to rely upon census block level data. If there's one household in a given census block that has service at a given tier, that whole block is considered to be served at that tier. And we all know that that's just not true. And so what we want to do is we want to drill down deeper, have more granular data. And that's what this mapping allows us to do. We're not doing it today, but you can zoom in and you can actually see within a county or within a community, the regions, the neighborhoods, the actual households that have connectivity at a given service level. And that really helps local decision makers and providers and others target resources, better understand the problem. And so that's why I just want to point out the maps that we're looking at, or the cuts of this map that we're looking at right now here, it's high level data. It's a county level or school district level. But when you get in the interactive map, you can drill down, or you can actually pull up one of those static PDF maps that are pre-prepared for you. And within a given jurisdiction, you can see where the broadband is strong and where it's weak. And so that's the key difference. It's just more timely, more granular. We think it's going to be a lot more helpful.
So you said that some providers are providing data at the address level.
Yeah, in this case, many of our providers, and thanks to them for partnering with us and with our mapping vendor to provide data. And much of that data has been provided at the address level.
Okay, so that is a big difference. Depending on which providers are, you have to be kind of then savvy about which providers are providing that at the address and which are providing it at the census block level. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think you don't want to assume that everybody's providing data that's granular at the household level. And so I think zooming in, I think you can click on the census track or census block layer just to kind of compare one block versus another. And that's one quick way of understanding, how granular the data is. But yeah, as a rule, this is going to be data that is at the household level.
Okay. And so there's some conversation about census being involved, and it's really the census geography, but the Census Bureau has nothing to do with this data. So it is the providers giving data at the address level and at the census block level. So it doesn't matter if you didn't have good participation in your census. That's a crime if you don't, or it's a shame anyways. But that doesn't really affect this mapping.
That's correct. Two different things.
Okay. The question about Comcast and AT&T, they've contributed to these maps.
Yes, they have.
Okay. And then there's another question about the ISPs have maps, although they rarely would publish those. Some providers, for example, I know that CenturyLink, and I know that they're not a big provider in Illinois, but if you go into their ordering system to order service, you can type in a particular address and they will tell you what speed service that they can deliver to that address. And so at a pretty accurate level, I believe, I think they actually do ping that phone line and see what the capability is for that, which is, so you can actually do that. And then, Matt, do you want to talk about the Illinois speed test at all as relating to this map?
Yeah, and in fact, I'll share the live version of the map here with you all, and we can actually see the speed test, and maybe we'll actually get it to work for us. So hang tight. All right. So what you're seeing right now, oops, I got to unfreeze my screen here.
Unshare, then reshare him. There you go.
All right, guys. So this is actually the live version of the map. I just wanted to be careful just in case, well, we had any bandwidth issues. I'm not immune from those. And so what you see here in the almost centered in the at the top of the screen, test your internet subscription speed. And so we're gonna tweak that and condense it just so it's a little bit snappier. But the point here is we're not just gonna rely upon data that's provided to us, which we really appreciate, or field test results. But we want to give consumers at home a chance to weigh in and help build a data set of your experiences through a speed test. And I think it's worth saying at the outset, no speed test is perfect. There's a number of different variables that can create some issues with speed test results. But taken over a whole state compared against other data, it helps us to identify some trouble areas where the data just doesn't line up. And so that's why we really want to encourage as many Illinoisans to take speed tests, take them often, use our speed test, because we have a lot of confidence in it. And also it feeds into a data set that's going to populate another mapping layer for our map. And so that's just an added benefit of using this speed test. You can click on here and we'll see if we'll get this to work. But you actually can sit down here and hit go. And this is a Ookla speed test. I'm not sure if I'm going to actually get it to go because we've got so much pulling off of our network here. I'm on the Illinois Century network because I'm using a state issued laptop. But the speed test would load and it'll provide us with 3 different data points. 1, we're going to have your upload speed, 2, your download speed, and 3, geolocation data. And so that's going to allow us, again, to build a map and show where upload and download speeds are at certain levels across the whole state. And it's not going to be to the exact household for privacy reasons and others, but within 100 meters or so. And so within a given school district or community or county, and certainly statewide, we'll have a good understanding of where the data kind of varies from the data that we're collecting through other means. And you can see the speed test is not loading here for me, but that's where you would actually click on it and right here, test your speed. You go to that Ookla speed test and it's going to give you your download, upload speed, and all of that speed will be loaded into a data set that's available to us too. And then we'll be able to create basically a speed test data map that will pair with all of the rest we're sharing here.
Good. Hey, let's switch gears, Matt, and go on the all this money that's coming down. The American Recovery Plan, the NTIA, the Treasury grants to states and local governments and so on. What's your advice to communities thinking about how do they improve broadband services in their area?
Yeah, as we'd mentioned at the outset, like a historic time, we've never seen anything like it. We may never see it again. And I think if we use these resources wisely, we'll never need to see anything like this again. And so it truly is the broadband moment. And I'm going to throw some more cliche at you. All hands on deck, are needed. And so that means our provider community, that means our offices of broadband, our organizations such as Benton Institute, but also we need our local communities to step up. Because only through participation at the community level are we going to be able to ensure there are investments being made in broadband that meet the community's vision, that are going to stand the test of time, and that in some cases leverage additional resources to do the job right. And one of the challenges you see with broadband investment is you just don't know what the take rate is going to be. How many households in a given area are going to be interested in signing up for the service? When communities are involved from the get-go, it drives up that take rate. It drives up the success of a project. And so in my ideal world, we are working as an Office of Broadband with state resources, leveraging new federal resources, perhaps some resources that are made available specifically to local communities. And we're engaging our provider community to make really incredible investments. We go someplace once, we never have to go there again. That's the idea, that future-proof investment. And so what I would say right now is if you're a local community member, a champion who knows enough to be dangerous and wants to push your community to make big investments, or you're a local elected official or others. Right now is the time to be thinking about this. And so we are always available at the Office of Broadband to just talk through where you are and where you want to go. Of course, we've got this webinar series in our partnership is really invaluable, I think, to helping folks understand next steps to making these investments worthwhile. But what I think is important right now is to convene. And so if you're at the county level, getting stakeholders together that include your libraries, your schools, your local communities, your providers, to talk about investment plans, look at our mapping, check out where you have relative strengths and weaknesses, and then look at the resources that are available to you already through, for instance, the American Recovery Plan Act. Those dollars don't necessarily need a grant application. You can use them and you can invest them in broadband. And then if you need some additional resources, we have our Connect Illinois grant program, which is nation leading both in its size and I think in the impact we're going to have in the years ahead. And then there are other grant programs, that we're, very interested in through the FCC or the USDA or NTIA, others that we think are going to be very valuable for the state of Illinois. And so I just say, don't let this summer pass without having those conversations, first with your community, also with us at the Office of Broadband, with providers in your area, and set a path forward how to use these resources and put your community in a position to succeed. I think the worst thing you can do is to go into this blindly and say, look, this isn't our business, we're not going to be involved. I think after the last year that we've endured, broadband is everybody's business. We've got to care about the investments that are being made. And then secondly, don't jump in without asking key questions. There are a lot of great consultants out there, and many projects need good consultants to drive good outcomes, but there are some others that might not provide the best advice. And so be thoughtful in how you take those initial steps. We're always here to provide some, I guess, free advice or just have a conversation about taking the next steps. I'm going to catch my breath, Bill.
Well, that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, you tell me. And
So
I should just mention,
maybe
I say this all the. Oh, go ahead, Bill.
I was just going to say, maybe somebody on this call would want to describe the process they're using in their community to try and think about how are they thinking about allocating American Recovery dollars, or applying for NTIA grants, or likewise. Anyone willing to share? Sharing is good, right? You learn that in kindergarten. So a lot of times, people argue and get, I think, fixated on the maps, and certainly the FCC and others use those maps as some of their work, to looking at eligibility. But now we've seen increasingly the funders saying that they recognize the shortcomings of the maps, and so that they are willing to accept evidence to that the maps are incorrect in terms of funding programs. I've often said that if you get the right people from any county, 10 people in any county, they can produce a pretty accurate broadband map based on what they know of services and what people have been saying, and that I have it, but my neighbors don't have it down the road. So putting together a good group of people in your community to think about this, school technology people, city and county technologists, people who do computer sales and service and networking, really know about the real capabilities of broadband and customer service. So getting those people on a team together to try and address these issues, as well as trying to work with either your existing providers, which can work in some cases, but also with prospective providers. Many times, providers who are active down the road, smaller, more entrepreneurial providers, can be folks that really can step in and help you find solutions.
I couldn't agree more, Bill. And so I think the take-home message for folks here is keep joining the webinar series as it extends through summer here. Have these conversations at the local level, and don't be intimidated by the weight of the issue or the technological aspect of the conversation. we're here to help, and we just want to help, local communities and our provider community, form partnerships, and make these investments that, again, can change the competitive nature of a community for the long haul, whether it's for remote learning or telehealth or working from home or starting home-based businesses, precision ag. We all know there's no shortage of, use cases for broadband. If we seize this moment, we make these investments together, I think we're going to look back at the transformative investment that Connect Illinois and in the federal and local dollars, the private dollars that have been leveraged will make for the state. And so lean into this, folks. This is a historic moment. It really is.
There's a question about the funding for feasibility studies and whether any of that is available. We see those price tags on those feasibility studies, the $20,000 to $100,000 have been cited here in the comments. And how does a local community afford those? I'd say a couple things. Number one is if you have a good team for your community that's actively engaged in those studies, a lot of that work can be done by community people and not necessarily paid for by providers or by paid to consultants by local governments. And so programs like the Illinois Connected Communities program, our first dozen communities put together broadband plans for the community around access, adoption, and use. We're going to be starting working with another 8 communities soon. But I have to say I was surprised at really the lack of interest by Illinois communities in that program for community broadband planning. That especially in rural Illinois, we had very few applications, and that Illinois Connected Communities program is a ground source way to do this work, pull the right people together, start to talk to providers, do surveys and so on, that you don't really have to pay consultants to do. One of the things, and we're going to talk about it today, is this partnership idea, that if you can identify a partner, provider partner in advance of doing those kind of studies, the need for those studies is reduced because that provider has internal capacity to do a lot of that work and to do it in the way they like to have it done, as opposed to kind of a generic study from another consulting firm. And so finding that right partner certainly is critical. It's not necessarily easy to do that, but some communities are lucky at it because they have providers who are nearby. They can show the local commitment that the community has to trying to do these kind of projects and so on. The other thing I'd say is if a community, and if depending on the size of the community, but if it's at the county level, if the county can't come up with the $20,000 for a kind of a study, then that really means that you have to do a lot more work at the community level to get that support, so that elected officials will put those resources into those kind of studies. It really does take local commitment. That local commitment really drives provider interest. And if you're thinking about some kind of community-owned network, then that $20,000 is really a drop in the bucket of what kind of local commitment will really be required long-term to make that happen. So that inability to get local leaders to commit funds, I think, is a real red flag in terms of demonstrating community commitment to attracting providers.
Bill, there's a gentleman named Martin O'Shield on the call that would like to ask a question. Martin, you were in the chat, and I just want to make sure you got your question in.
Oh, good.
You have to come off mute, Martin.
Martin?
Adrian, are you in a position to paraphrase the question?
No, he just said he had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He put it in the chat, and I wanted to make sure that we recognized him. It says host is not allowing his microphone. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, just a real quick general question, and basically this is, I'm from the Chicago area. I'm born and bred and raised up from the south side of Chicago, but raised on the north side, Wrigleyville, Lincoln Park area. And the biggest problem that I'm finding over the last 8, 9 years is the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois has done a couple of different broadband grant projects, and they seem to keep utilizing these same quote unquote community leaders in these desperate redlined areas that have nothing. And these same people always apply for the grants, and they wind up getting the grant money, or they're on stage with the people passing out the grant money, and the communities get absolutely zero. So for instance, the Gigabit Squared, that was $2 million gone. The Bobby Rush Tech Center, which kind of had nothing to do with broadband. It's supposed to be a tech center, but I think you guys hear what I'm saying. I'm a IBM business partner, and I'm part of Facebook's telecom infrastructure project. I'm a member, so I go back and forth to Facebook headquarters. They have next generation technology that the state of Illinois, via Motorola, we no longer manufacture, but would would fulfill everything that you guys sincerely are trying to accomplish. But they keep sticking us with these same quote unquote community leaders who eat the grant money, and the communities get zero. How do we avoid people like that when we sincerely want to put things, we really want to bring real infrastructure, next generation infrastructure to
Yeah.
fruition to these areas that desperately need it, versus the same old traditional community leaders that they always, oh, you got to work with these community leaders, and it's all
Yep.
like a grant
Yeah,
money
sure, Martin.
hustle.
I get the thrust of your question here, and I'll just say I've been part of the conversation in Illinois here for 2 years, and so I can't speak to past investments, prior administrations. I'll just tell you this: we want to get the job done right. We want to work with proven community partners, whether they're local governments or community organizations, our provider community, that by and large has really leaned into this opportunity to partner with the state and make investments that get the job done right. And so that's why we really rely upon increasingly accurate mapping. We rely upon proven track record of an applicant that would like to leverage state dollars to make investments. And then we're going to work with that partner, whether it's a local community, an organization, a provider community, or a partnership of all of them. That's the ideal. But we want to see these projects succeed. And so we've set goals, and the only way to make sure that we're going to meet those goals is that we go down this path together. And so again, I can't speak for the past. I just can say that we've got a data-driven approach that relies upon accurate mapping, that relies upon forming partnerships and collaborative opportunities with those who can get the job done. And that's where our focus lies. And so we want to make this an inclusive process. We want communities and community organizations to feel empowered by this opportunity in front of us. But I think that's the magic formula, an all hands on deck approach, and really keep an eye on results, getting the job done, filling that map, and making future proof investments. And so I know that probably sounds really optimistic, but that's the expectation that we're setting for ourselves. And so I would just encourage folks who are out there that say, hey, this seems interesting, we want to get involved, contact us or reach out to your local elected officials or other community leaders to get a conversation started. And again, I say this a lot, but I mean, none of this work gets done without great collaboration with our provider community. And so that's that sweet spot that we're all striving for here in Illinois. And in the meantime, guys, I pulled up a static map. I keep talking about these things, and I don't want them to exist only in the abstract. And so I went into our file for Adams County because it's the first county up alphabetically, and I got a couple maps to share with you. And the point here is all of the mapping that we just previewed was really like, kind of looking at the forest and not the trees. We never really zoomed in. And so you can do that for any community in Illinois. You can zoom in even further than what we have here. But we've got a set of maps, again, 1,788 maps right now and counting. One of the map files is just on counties. And so here we have Adams County, and this is where basic broadband at the 25x3 level is available. You can tell just by looking, this is not simply census blocks. This is address level data in many cases. And so this is the 25/3 level for one county of Illinois. We have them for all of the counties. We're also assembling them for school districts, other jurisdictions, whether it's, legislative districts or congressional districts or regions of the state. But you can see here, 92% have broadband at this basic level in the county, leaving about 2,100 households unserved. And so it'll give you kind of a breakdown here. You can also look at the same county, but a different service level, and you see the 100/20 wireline service, again, about 92%. And so basically in this county, if you got 25/3, you tend to have 100/20. That speaks to the technology that's available, but it also speaks to the number of households that are still lacking broadband at this level. And then also just look at the geography, a lot of area of opportunity for investment, for partnership, for, again, filling in that map. And so I just wanted to bring this mapping resource to light. It's not just the interactive map that we've got, but we have the ability to really drill down, get specific, and then we've got these prepared, PDF files that you can, you can basically download and go. And so just wanted to shine a quick light on what the actual static maps look like.
Matt, can
Sorry,
you talk about what the Office of Broadband?
Oh, pardon me?
Can you talk about what the Office of Broadband can do to help ISPs connect with communities? Emily Bernstein has a question on that.
Oh, great. Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to keep up with the chat box here.
Yeah.
One thing that we try to do at the office is just be a connector, both literally and also figuratively. If we hear from a community or a neighborhood, just a collection of houses that are looking for better service, we post that on a tab on our website, Making Connections. And I don't want to oversell just how useful that is. I think it's kind of the beta version of the tool. But the point is, if you're a provider looking for communities that are reaching out to us, or if you're a community looking for a provider, one way to do that is drop us an email. Easiest thing is broadband@illinois.gov. And then you can see our website here in all its glory. You can click down here. The Making Connections tab will open up just a very basic list of communities or neighborhoods that we've heard from, other kind of third-party collaborators that would like to add value to the investments we're making. And we hope to hear from more providers that would like to make investments in certain parts of the state too. Again, we can play that role of making connections, getting the conversation started. And if you're a provider or you're a neighborhood and you want to start talking about making inroads into better service, there's some work that we can do together there prior to a grant. And so that's just one example of a very basic resource we have available on our website, but we've gotten a lot of feedback that it's been helpful so far. And what we hope to do here in the coming weeks is to have a little bit more sophisticated tool that's, a little bit more interactive for folks. But nonetheless, this is a start.
Matt, question about what the state is doing to get ready for any kind of federal broadband funding that will come directly to the states.
Yeah.
Or maybe even if you could expand that to include the state doing anything to help communities or counties or providers apply for some of these other dollars.
Yeah, there's a couple things here. First of all, the ARPA, the American Recovery Plan Act, included $10 billion to U.S. Department of Treasury. And of that, we have approximately $300 million that's been devoted to Illinois through the Capital Projects Fund. And essentially, this is like a block grant for the state of Illinois from U.S. Department of Treasury. And this is something that a lot of us have been advocating for well over a decade, using the power of the federal government to be a partner in funding state-driven investment in broadband. And so we're essentially doubling down on our Connect Illinois grant program through the use of federal dollars. And those dollars will align very closely. In fact, the federal program was designed after what we're doing here in Illinois and what's been done in some other nation-leading states around the country in the past decade. And so the fit is really strong. And so we look forward to deploying those capital fund project dollars coming from U.S. Department of Treasury, made available in the American Recovery Plan Act. That's going to be available and online this year. In addition to that, there's a lot of investment that was made directly to agencies or departments at the federal level that open up grant programs and opportunities. One that I'm encouraging local communities, particularly in the Chicago area, but elsewhere in Illinois, is the Connecting Minority Community Pilot Program. I'd love to see more investment of this kind down the road. And so the National Telecommunications Information Administration, it's a bureau within the U.S. Department of Commerce, has their Connecting Minority Community Pilot Program, NOFO, that should be hitting the street in the next several weeks. That's something that we're encouraging qualifying organizations to take advantage of. We've been watching for details. They're working through the rule process right now. There are several webinars that are available online. Again, NTIA is the resource there, NTIA. In addition to that, we're really interested in another NTIA program that is their broadband investment, what is it, Broadband Infrastructure Development Program, the BID program, and harkens back to the ARA era a decade ago. But up to $30 million are available to states. And we've been saying this in newsletters and on webinars like this. If you're a fixed broadband provider or a local community and you'd like to partner with the Illinois Office of Broadband in going after up to $30 million of federal funding, that's one opportunity for us. And again, it supplements, adds value to other state and federal funding streams in Illinois. In addition to that, I'm not going to get into the details too much, but USDA, Department of Agriculture, they've got some great programs with their Reconnect program. Also, USDA and the FCC itself do some really great work with promoting telehealth. And we see great opportunity moving forward for advances in telehealth and the investment in the not only the network, but the equipment that you need to make telehealth work. And so those sorts of programs, we hearken to them. We try to pass along details in our newsletters, in webinars, but those are just some of the programs that we think offer great promise to Illinois. And even though the Office of Broadband has a lighter touch with some of them, we want folks to be aware. We want providers and others to be taking advantage of those. Bill, you get me going here, man. We're we're covering all the bases here today. I even had a chance to share our Illinois Office of Broadband website with everybody. And in the coming weeks, you'll be able to scroll down here, this menu at the right. We'll have not only our drive up Wi-Fi map, which highlights some publicly available Wi-Fi that we're aware of. We've been tracking this since the pandemic over a year ago, but the interactive map that I just kind of previewed with folks will be available through this link. Right now, we have our alpha version of the map that we've been using for the last 2 years. We'll have this much more fully loaded map available in the coming weeks. Again, right here on this tab on our website. And then you can scroll down and you can see various grant opportunities, whether it's our digital equity grants. Bill, you mentioned our Connected Communities program. We just recently announced round 2 of Connected Communities, so folks can read more about that community planning and capacity building program there. Of course, we've got a whole slew of webinars that we link to. And in addition to that, kind of our hallmark Connect Illinois grant program, and we are poised to announce winners of round 2, our awardees for round 2 of the Connect Illinois grant program in the coming weeks. A lot of information here. And if you're listening and you want to take advantage of Connect Illinois, we will have a notice of funding opportunity posted in the coming weeks. And so keep an eye out for that. Now we have covered all the bases.
Mm-hmm.
Bill, Nancy, I just really appreciate the chance to connect with folks today. And I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat box. If there aren't any other questions, I would just, again, reiterate, this is the moment to lean into the broadband conversation at the local level. Have conversations with your elected officials, with your providers in your area. Contact the Office of Broadband. If you're on the fence, lean into this opportunity because we might not see it again.
Good. Thank you, Matt. There's a question about what's happening with the Navigator NOCO program.
Oh, we, thanks, that's great. I didn't talk about that. So we are really excited about the Navigator, the Digital Navigator program. And essentially what we would like to do is establish a network of local and community and organizational based resources around the state. Folks who've worked with the Office of Broadband and some of our collaborator organizations to essentially go through a kind of a teach the teacher curriculum, understanding providers available in a given area, understanding resources for affordability or adoption. Essentially think of what a modern librarian is for a lot of patrons who go to the library for computer access or internet access. That librarian knows how to turn on the computer, how to use the computer, how to use the internet. And we want to develop that kind of resource, that layer, that capacity around the state. And so that there is local know-how to help community members with digital literacy questions, how to use a computer, how to navigate the internet. But we'd also like to create a one-stop shop statewide to answer questions really touching any number of bases related to broadband. Grant opportunities, digital literacy questions, those sorts of things that we think are really important. And so the funding stream has been identified. We just have not been able to issue our follow-along notice of funding opportunity. And so I would say we really are interested in this Navigator program. We just, the funding has been identified. It's not available to us quite yet. So keep an eye on that. We will be doubling down on the Navigator program in the second half of 2021. At least that's the expectation.
Good. Thanks, Matt. And with that, we'll give you back 30 minutes of your day. And I really appreciate you participating in this open session today. It was really interesting. Matt had plenty to talk about and give updates on, I think is great. The session that we had planned for today will take place 2 weeks from today at the same time. We'll look for an email on to confirm that, and then the following 2 webinars in our series. So thank you so much and have a great day.